lucky for you, that's what I like, that's what I like.
Hi, I'm Kamisha Holmes.
I'm Taylor Hayes.
I'm Crystal Hayward.
I'm Amaya Henderson.
Alexis Jones.
Chris Wilson.
And we are Group 4. And here goes our neuron story.
An event happens in cell A where neurotransmitters are released through the synapse towards cell B. The neurotransmitters begin to move from the presynaptic membrane of cell A across the synapse to the presynaptic membrane of cell B. The synaptic vesicles move towards the presynaptic membrane and helps it grow in order for the neurotransmitters to transfer over to the receptor sites on the postsynaptic membrane. But before it can do that, it has 4 things that it can do. Number 1, it can dissipate into the interstitial fluid in the synapse. 2, it can be taken back up to cell A, which is called reuptake. 3, it can be metabolized into enzymes in between the interstitial fluid, or more than likely, it can bind to a postsynaptic receptor in cell B.
The majority of the time, the receptor cell is closed because there is no neurotransmitter bound to it. When a neurotransmitter is binding to the receptor will open and allow sodium to come into the cell because sodium is permeable. Sodium will come in the cell because of 2 forces, osmosis and electrostatic pressure. Osmosis allows particles of the solution to go down the concentration gradient. So sodium, which is greater, is on the outside than the inside, causing it to go inside the cell. Both forces must work together for the operation to work. Sodium is a positive charge in the interstitial fluid. Since the outside of the cell is more negative, than the inside, it works because of the opposite charges. The opposites attract.
The movement of charged ions appears on the oscilloscope initially as a short burst of depolarization, and that is called EPSP, which is excitatory postsynaptic potential. The oscilloscope records the amount of voltage as a function of time, which is recorded in millivolts. When the cell is at rest, it measures 70 millivolts on the oscilloscope. The oscilloscope shows a slight raise after the receptor opens and allows sodium to enter the cell through the binding site. EPSP forms when the ionotropic receptors located on the dendrites of cell B are open during the presence of neurotransmitters binding. There can be an accumulation of charge that travels from the dendrites past the soma and collects at the axon hillock. This accumulation of charge is called electrostatic energy.
Okay, so a large amount of transmitter molecules such that is a summation of the SPSP are added together, increasing positivity into the cell. Then it reaches the threshold of excitation at minus 65 millivolts. This process is called a temporal summation. This leads to action potential. The location of the receptor that is called threshold of excitation takes place in the axon hillock, which causes the opening of the voltage-gated channels. These channels look like the ionotropic receptors, except there's no place for the receptors to bind because there's no neurotransmitter involved. The voltage-gated channels require multitude of voltage caused by many neurotransmitters. Once the minus 65 millivolt threshold is reached, that is the intention of action potential. Action potential is initiated by the binding of the neurotransmitter molecule located in the dendrites of the dendritic organization in cell B. Then the neurotransmitter binds on an elongated channel. It grants ions to enter the cell. The movement of the ion is the electrical portion of the action potential.
Hillock. Rush generates the action potential due. Oh, this is the axon hillock. Rush generates the action potential due to the number of EPSP, which is excitatory postsynaptic potential, reaching the threshold of excitation. Then there's an immense influx of sodium into the cell. It reaches plus 55 from minus 65. Because it's so much, that's massive depolarization. Sodium is now the equilibrium. However, potassium gate is open, thus leaving the cell, causing hypolarization. Lastly, action potential is caused by the specialized ion channels called sodium-potassium pump, not high voltage gated channels. Once transmitted, action potential moves in totality from the axon hillock to the nodes of Ranvier, till finally reaching terminal button called saltatory conduction. Calcium is signaled to enter the cell. Once action potential reaches the terminal button, this causes the movement of the vesicles within the presynaptic membrane. And that's it.
Electrical signal travel faster in the axon that are insulated by myelin. Sodium and potassium are involved, which are right here. During the action potential, sodium is involved during the movement of vessels in the terminal buttons. These are the terminal buttons. The vessel is then open, causing the ion to merge in the presynaptic, which is in here, membrane where the neurotransmitter is released. Now there is neurotransmitters in the synapse between